When it comes to women's health, most of the attention often goes to hormones like estrogen, progesterone, and cortisol. But there's another molecule, small, invisible, and often overlooked, that plays a massive role in how women feel every single day. It's called nitric oxide. Nitric oxide impacts everything from energy levels and metabolism to hormone balance, cardiovascular health, and longevity. Yet millions of women are unknowingly deficient, leaving them feeling fatigued, out of balance, and frustrated in their health journey. On today's show, I sat down with Dr. Nathan Bryan, a world-renowned scientist, nitric oxide expert, and biotech entrepreneur. In our conversation, Dr. Bryan explains why nitric oxide is so essential and how deficiency develops. So, friend, if you're ready to discover natural strategies to restore nitric oxide and reclaim your health, then grab a notebook and pen and let's dive in. Hey friend, welcome to Integrative Medicine for Energy and Health. Are you struggling with low energy, excessive weight, chronic fatigue, imbalanced hormones, or body aches and pains that are robbing you of enjoying life? If you're ready to take the guesswork out of living a healthier life, you're in the right place. Hi, I'm Rekishia. I'm a mom, honorably retired Air Force veteran, award-winning author, social worker, and Christian alternative medicine provider. For years, I tried improving my health through conventional medicine and nothing worked until I finally found a simple strategy that was easy and fun. This podcast will provide you with natural ways to increase energy, lose weight, regulate hormones, and improve your mood. If you're ready to live, look, and feel better, grab your favorite cup of herbal tea and let's jump in. Welcome to Integrative Medicine for Energy and Health, the go-to podcast for women who want to boost their energy, trim their waistline, and balance their hormones, all while staying grounded in faith. I'm your host, Rekishia McMillan, and I am so elated that you're here. Today, I'm joined by an incredible guest, Dr. Nathan Bryan. He's a pioneering scientist, world-renowned nitric oxide expert, and biotech entrepreneur with over 100 peer-reviewed publications and dozens of patents. His groundbreaking research has not only sparked a billion-dollar industry, but also transformed how we understand human health and performance. In this episode, we're diving into the powerful role of nitric oxide, what it is, why it's essential for energy, metabolism, hormone balance, and especially women's health. Dr. Bryan also reveals why so many people are unknowingly deficient, and most importantly, what you can do to naturally restore this critical molecule. This conversation is full of insights and practical takeaways, so let's get into it. Well, hello, everyone, and welcome to Integrative Medicine for Energy and Health. I am elated about today's show. We have a very special guest that I'll be interviewing, Dr. Nathan Bryan. And today we're going to be talking about his book, The Secret of Nitric Oxide, and how you can integrate this amazing supplement into your lifestyle to help you to improve your health. And so, Dr. Bryan, welcome to the show.
Well, thanks so much for having me on. It's great to be with you.
Oh, it is a pleasure to host you. I've been looking so forward to having you on the show today. And as I shared earlier, I was excited and elated to be able to get the email to host you on the show because I just got done reading your book, The Secret of Nitric Oxide. And so For those that are new to nitric oxide, can you share a little bit about what nitric oxide is and why it's so important?
Well, yeah, and it's a signaling molecule. I mean, this is a recent discovery in the medical and scientific literature, probably 40 years old, so it's still relatively new. But it's a gas that's produced by the lining of the blood vessels. In fact, it's produced by many cells in the human body. But it's a signaling molecule. It's how cells in the body communicate. But it's what we call a vasodilator. So when it's produced in the lining of the blood vessels, it signals the smooth muscle that surrounds the blood vessels to relax, which causes vasodilation. So it normalizes blood pressure, improves blood flow, improves tissue oxygenation. It's the signal that tells our own stem cells to mobilize and differentiate. It turns on mitochondrial biogenesis, so it regulates energy production. It prevents the telomeres, the ends of our chromosomes, from getting shorter. So everything we know about nitric oxide, everything we know about health, wellness, and longevity, and even human optimization is dependent upon the body's ability to produce this molecule. Because it's recognized today that if you lose the ability to produce nitric oxide, that's really the earliest event in the onset and progression of chronic disease.
Mm. So, because this molecule is so critical to our health, what are some things that actually impact the production of nitric oxide in a person's life?
Well, we certainly understand that. I mean, to answer that question, we had to first answer the question: how does the human body make it? And then what leads to a disruption, or what leads to an activation or stimulation? So we can maintain adequate nitric oxide production by a good diet, a balanced diet in moderation, free of anything high sugar, high carbohydrate, moderate physical exercise, sunlight. All of those things activate and stimulate nitric oxide production. Adequate vitamin D, for example, and adequate testosterone and estrogen all stimulate and activate nitric oxide production. But I think the most important question we've answered over the past 20, 25 years is what leads to a loss of nitric oxide production. So we know that the standard risk factors, sedentary diet, sedentary lifestyle, a poor diet with a lot of sugar, anything that leads to an increase in blood sugar shuts down nitric oxide production. We know now that there's oral bacteria that live on the crypts of the tongue, that are responsible for producing nitric oxide. So anything that's antiseptic, fluoride in your toothpaste, fluoride in your drinking water, antiseptic mouthwash, disrupts nitric oxide production. And then some drug therapy, things like proton pump inhibitors, cholesterol-lowering medications, all of those completely inhibit nitric oxide production and should be avoided.
Yeah, you mentioned, fluoride, toothpaste, the water. When I read that in your book, that really struck me as to how many people are actually using, the toothpaste that has a fluoride. You're drinking water that has fluoride that can really disrupt that production and to really impact a person's health.
Now, for sure, all you have to do is look at the numbers and look at the data. I mean, a study from the National Toxicology Program about a year ago revealed that, fluoride in the drinking water can lower IQ in kids and young kids by as much as 7 points. And so when we have to look at, especially when it comes to public policy, what's the risk and the benefit? And really today, there are no benefits provided by fluoride in the drinking water, even fluoride in the dentist office. What's the risk? Lower IQ in kids. You develop completely kill the microbiome in the mouth, in the gut, on the skin, because we're drinking it, we're bathing in it. It's a neurotoxin, and it shuts down your thyroid function. So fluoride is a very, what we call electrophilic molecule, and it steals electrons, which causes oxidation. And oxidation is basically rusting us from the inside out. And so we have to remove it from exposure. We have to get it out of the water supply. I think there's a big effort now by this administration to get fluoride out of the drinking water, because they recognize and understand the science that it provides no benefit and it's all risk. So that's a very easy quotient.
Mm-hmm. So being proactive, looking at the things that are in our environment, things that we're doing daily that could impact our overall health is essential. And so, how did you begin this journey, Dr. Brian, as far as nitric oxide? For those that may not know your story, how did you end up in this space?
Well, I've learned God has a sense of humor. When I finished a degree in biochemistry from the University of Texas at Austin. And after that bachelor's degree, I swore I never wanted to deal in nitrogen-based chemistry again because it's 5-valence electron, just reactive. And then, I was a student at LSU School of Medicine. I was working on a PhD in molecular and cellular physiology, and this new science of nitric oxide was emerging. A Nobel Prize had just been awarded in 1998. And I trained under a pharmacologist that had been working in the nitric oxide field since the 80s. And so it was exciting time. There were we knew a lot about nitric oxide, but I think there was much more we didn't know. Like we really didn't have a clear understanding of how the human body made it. We really couldn't detect it because, nitric oxide's a gas, and once it's produced, it's gone in less than a second. So we had to figure out, once nitric oxide's produced, where does it go? What does it become? And how does it signal? And so, that's what I spent the next 25 years trying to uncover and unveil, and really led to a lot of discoveries. And we published over 100 peer-reviewed papers over the past 25 years, and have several dozen issued patents. So we've made a lot of discoveries. But, the thing that really got me interested was Lou Ignarro, who had just won the Nobel Prize when I was a first-year student. And he said to me, he came to LSU School of Medicine and gave a lecture. He said, if someone can figure out how to safely and effectively deliver nitric oxide in an outpatient setting and develop product technology or drug therapy, it would change the world. Because even Dr. Ignarro knew 25 years ago that the loss of nitric oxide is what leads to chronic disease. So if we can figure out how to restore it safely and naturally and effectively, it would really transform healthcare and really change the landscape of medicine. So here we are 25 years later, and that's certainly true.
Now, I know the majority of the clients that I work with are women who are struggling, facing hormonal imbalances, whether that's in perimenopause or menopause. And so can you share a little bit about how nitric oxide can impact hormone regulation and how it impacts balance for women?
For sure. Number one, it's a two-way street, right? So specifically in women, perimenopausal or menopausal, estrogen has a very strong activating and stimulating effect on endogenous nitric oxide production. And that explains why premenopausal women have a lower incidence of heart attack, stroke, cardiovascular disease than age-matched men, because of the positive effects of estrogen on stimulating nitric oxide production. But what happens during perimenopause and menopause, estrogen levels go down. We lose the activation and stimulation of nitric oxide. Other hormones can lead to dysfunction of the enzyme. And then, even in women who undergo hormone replacement therapy, if we don't first fix the enzyme that makes nitric oxide, you don't restore the cardioprotective benefits of hormone replacement therapy until you can restore the function of the nitric oxide synthase enzyme. So nitric oxide is a hormone just like estrogen, testosterone, and thyroid. We were the group that published that in 2007 for the first time, showing that nitric oxide has endocrine effects, meaning that the nitric oxide produced in one tissue has distal effects on every other organ, tissue, and cell in the body. So when we think about hormone replacement, whether it's estrogen and progesterone in women or testosterone in men, we have to also consider replacing the hormone nitric oxide, because that is the cytoprotective, cardioprotective benefits of hormones. And without nitric oxide, you lose that cardioprotection.
So it's really restoring the body to health and getting that nitric oxide back into the body to help restore that hormonal balance.
Oh, that's right. And so it's foundational, because how exocrine organ and endocrine organs work is that they sense the blood supply, right? But if we have microvascular dysfunction, and whether it's the blood going through the hypothalamus or the pituitary or the gonads, if it's not getting a good sample because there's compromised blood flow, then it can't respond to restore normal hormone production. And then nitric oxide is part of the hormone release from these endocrine glands. So if you can't make nitric oxide, your body's not, the endocrine organs aren't sensing a good sample of the blood supply because there's microvascular dysfunction. So when we restore the production of nitric oxide, now we're openly perfusing every organ, tissue, and cell in the body. We're leading to better cellular communication, and we're better optimizing hormones. But so we say that's foundational, but you still have to focus on, let's get your thyroid, the master hormone, right. Let's focus on getting the right amount of estrogen and progesterone and dialed in for that particular patient, whether it's in menopause or andropause in men. Nitric oxide, we truly believe, is foundational. It's where you should start. And then everything else that you do is going to work better because you can have better circulation, less inflammation, less oxidative stress, and less immune dysfunction.
Mm-hmm. Now, I know earlier I heard you also mention mitochondrial function, and so that has to do so much with energy levels in women, and that's also one of the major concerns of not having enough energy. So can you talk about how nitric oxide can really impact health at the cellular level?
Sure. So, mitochondria are what produce the energy so the cell can do its job. So if you have mitochondrial dysfunction, the cell can't do its job, and people have low energy. So to a lot of people, that's subjective, right? But for me, at least, as a biochemist and physiologist, it's an objective measuring. We look at that through mitochondrial function. So nitric oxide is basically allowing for the adequate transfer of electrons to the terminal, what we call cytochrome C oxidase, cellular energy, or ATP. And without adequate nitric oxide production, you get electron leakage. And then we start to lose the efficiency of ATP production. You start to generate superoxide, which is an oxygen radical, and you increase oxidative stress. And so when we have adequate nitric oxide, it prevents the electron leakage. It improves the energy efficiency, or the ATP, the production efficiency of ATP, and it allows oxygen to diffuse further into tissue. And that's really important in athletes and people who kind of push that anaerobic threshold and run out of oxygen. If you have adequate nitric oxide, you can actually perform better with lower oxygen. And what that means is you have less lactic acid buildup and your recovery is even better. So that's the acute effects of nitric oxide. But we know the chronic effects and kind of the adaptive effects of enhanced nitric oxide is it induces mitochondrial biogenesis. So things like intermittent fasting, caloric restriction, exercise, sirtuins, all these things that have been shown to induce mitochondrial biogenesis are dependent upon the cell's ability to produce nitric oxide. So if the enzyme nitric oxide synthase isn't functional, you're not going to get mitochondrial biogenesis from sirtuins, from intermittent fasting, from caloric restriction. That's why it's so important to focus on the function of the enzyme so that now you can do these lifestyle changes and change your diet, change your lifestyle, and optimize your hormones. And now you're going to get the benefits of that. Because it's all through induction of PGC1 alpha, which then leads to mitochondrial biogenesis. So the net effect of having adequate nitric oxide is you've got more mitochondria per cell generating more energy with less oxygen. And that's what we call human optimization.
And so you mentioned too, it's, people can get the nitric oxide into their lifestyle, but it's also the other things that have to be done too, like reducing stress, getting adequate sleep. Have you found that certain medications also lower nitric oxide in a person's life as well?
Yes, the big culprit are the proton pump inhibitors. These drugs have been shown to completely shut down endogenous nitric oxide production from the enzyme in the lining of the blood vessels and from this enterosalivary circuit that takes inorganic nitrate and converts it to nitrite and nitric oxide gas. So the PPIs are inhibiting nitric oxide from both of those pathways. It leads to an increase in asymmetric dimethylarginine, or ADMA. It shuts down nitric oxide production in the lumen of the stomach. And now we know that these people who have been on these drugs for at least 3 years have a 40% higher incidence of heart attack, stroke, and Alzheimer's. This isn't increased risk. These are actually increased incidence of this. So these drugs, were never approved by the FDA to be used chronically. These drugs were only FDA approved to be used for 3 to 5 days for acute gastroesophageal reflux. And now you don't even have to have a prescription to get these drugs. You can go to your corner drugstore and buy these over the counter. And people have been on them for 10, 15, 20 years, and the consequences are deadly. And so I argue that the pharmaceutical companies and the manufacturers of these drugs should do the responsible thing and take them off the market. And the FDA should put a black box warning on these, similar to with the COX-2 inhibitors from 25 years ago, because they're killing people. And mechanistically, we understand why it's killing people.
Hmm. No, absolutely. And because, again, we've just been so conditioned here in the US to medicate everything versus address the root cause of what an individual is facing. And so there are so many people that want to take the medications versus trying a natural supplement like the nitric oxide that will improve their health, that can help them to get off of the medications. And so with the work that you're doing, what are some of the biggest myths that are surrounding nitric oxide and using the supplements versus prescription medication?
Well, you know what? I think we have to get back to the basics of medicine. And medicine, 100 years ago was what we called applied physiology. Today, medicine is pharmacology, making a synthetic compound that inhibits a biochemical reaction. And so we have to get back to the basics. But in terms of the myths around nitric oxide and supplements, and I think what hinders its adoption by physicians and many consumers is that, number one, beets aren't nitric oxide. If you turn on your TV, there's all these advertisements about beets and companies selling you beets and saying it's nitric oxide. That's probably the biggest myth in the nitric oxide field. Beets are not nitric oxide, and you should not be buying beets as a source of nitric oxide, because 99% of the products on the market, beet products on the market, I've tested all of them. They don't produce nitric oxide. They don't activate nitric oxide production, and they're full of sugar. And the sugar is the last thing Americans need, and especially in their supplements. So that's, to me, that's the biggest one. And it's a dangerous proposition with these companies doing this, because I hear this all the time, because people go, Nathan, you talk about how important nitric oxide is, but I've been taking this beet product that I've been advertising on TV for the past 10 years, and I've been taking it. I buy it every month, but my blood pressure hasn't improved. My energy hasn't improved. I haven't seen any changes. In fact, I may have even gotten worse. So nitric oxide doesn't work for me. And when they make that interpretation, that could kill the entire industry. So nitric oxide always works when you deliver it either clinically, medically, or in a supplemental dose. If it produces nitric oxide, it dilates blood vessels, it improves energy production, it improves tissue oxygenation. So when these companies out there are selling you a bill of goods and saying it's a nitric oxide beet product and it's not, it's a very dangerous proposition. These companies should be held accountable. And I call these companies out, and I've been sued by many of them. And so, but I think it's important that we maintain the integrity of the field. And, these companies have to stop doing this, because it's not only irresponsible, but it's dangerous.
Mm-hmm. And so for those that are listening, Dr. Brian, and are considering, nitric oxide and using this as a supplement to really be a part of their health regimen, can you talk a little bit about the supplement and how individuals can get this into their lifestyle?
Sure. Well, I spent 20 years in academia, and my objective was never to develop dietary supplements, right? I was charged with understanding the mechanism of disease to the extent that we could develop drug therapy. And that's what people in academia do, especially in medical schools. We try to understand the disease mechanism and then either, develop products or technology that improves the treatment, curing, prevention, or the diagnosis of disease. But it's just so fortunate that nitric oxide, we figured out how to make nitric oxide gas, right? And so I made a solid dose form of nitric oxide gas. And so nitric oxide is not a pill you can swallow. It's not something you can take. It's not L-arginine, and it's certainly not beets. And so when you put this in your mouth, I designed it to have a resident time of 5 to 6 minutes, but it's releasing nitric oxide gas. So if your body can't make it, then we do it for you. But we brought this to market years ago because we went to the FDA, and it's basically a supplemental dose of nitric oxide. We're recapitulating normal nitric oxide production and nitric oxide signaling. So we just started in the supplement space, but really my goal and what we're working toward is drug therapy. We've got a drug now we're working through the FDA for ischemic heart disease. We've got a drug we're working on for Alzheimer's disease, and we make a topical drug for diabetic ulcers and non-healing wounds. So my advice to anybody out there who's considering nitric oxide, buy it from the company who's actually done the research, because none of these other companies have a scientist on staff. what they do is they hire these talking heads who have never published a single paper in the nitric oxide field. They don't understand how the human body makes nitric oxide. They certainly don't understand what causes deficiency. So how can they even think about selling you a product? And so I just ask that people trust. If you're looking for a nitric oxide product, that's what we do. That's all we do. There are other important nutrients and supplements like vitamin C, vitamin D, glutathione. And there are other companies out there who make really good products and do that. But, we do one thing and we do it better than anybody else in the world. So we make nitric oxide products. We do it in the form of a lozenge. We make a fermented beet powder, which actually produces nitric oxide. When we remove the oxalates, so, most beets are full of oxalates and cause kidney stones. And then we make a topical nitric oxide for skincare, beauty, and we're developing that technology for drug therapy. So my promise and my value proposition to anybody listening is if our products don't produce nitric oxide, then we don't bring it to market. So you can guarantee that any product that you take from us is going to produce nitric oxide, and it's going to get to the root cause of why your body's lost the ability to make it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's one of the other things that I found fascinating about your book too, Dr. Brian, is the case studies that showed how many people recovered from different ailments, whether it was coming out of coma or healing skin conditions that wasn't affecting their health. And it's just amazing what nitric oxide does for the body overall.
No, look, you're exactly right. And I've even been shocked, and I've been doing this for 25 or 30 years now. But when you see the effects of nitric oxide, and even some of the most complex, complicated patients out there, kids born with the genetic errors and inborn errors of metabolism, genetic disorders. We published in 2011, we saved a kid's life that had an inborn error metabolism and severe hypertension, pediatric intensive care unit, blood pressure 210/115, and the lozenge brought his blood pressure down and normalized his kidney disease, completely resolved his heart disease, improved his neurological, cognitive abilities. And then, the one that was near and dear to my heart was my own dad. My dad had a car accident in 1984, left him paralyzed from, the mid back down. So he's dealt with decubitus non-healing ulcers, for 40 years. And he had a 4-year-old non-healing wound that, got infected. He almost died from sepsis. And I started making a topical nitric oxide. I put it in the wound bed, and, we healed a 4-year-old non-healing wound in a period of months. So that really got me. We've replicated and duplicated that at wound care centers all around the U.S., all around the world, in fact. So we haven't seen a wound that nitric oxide would not heal, because nitric oxide kills the infection that's typically present in most non-healing wounds. And wounds are non-healing because typically they don't have blood supply. These are diabetic, they're hypoxic, they're ischemic. And so when we apply nitric oxide, you get a hyperemic response, you get blood supply to the wound, you kill the infection, you get tissue granulation, you mobilize stem cells. And that's part of the body's wound repair response. We just have to provide the nitric oxide because those patients are unable to make it on their own. So I'm excited about, the supplements are extremely important. We've been very successful in that technology. But for me, it's all about drug therapy, getting it through the FDA so that physicians all around the world, because most physicians don't pay any attention to supplements, and rightfully so, because most supplements don't do anything. And most supplements, there was a study out last year showing that 72% of the supplements on the market don't contain even what's on their label. And that's a huge problem. And so, the supplement industry is still the wild, wild west. And, it's not the company who spends the most money on advertising. Usually those are the companies with the poorest science, and that's why they got to spend so much money and advertise. But when you have a product that works, people understand it, people talk, and it's word of mouth. And that's what we've experienced over the past 5 or 6 years.
Yeah, it's truly amazing because when we give the body what it needs, it has the ability to heal and recover miraculously.
Yeah, but we also have to remove from the body the source of toxins, right? So I think that's very important that we give the body what it needs and it heals itself, but we have to remove from the body what it doesn't need so it can actually not be inhibited by being willing to do what it's able to do.
No doubt. And so if there was someone that was going to try the nitric oxide supplement, what would you say are the top three benefits that they could expect from using the supplement?
Everyone's different, but I'll start by saying that there's only two people in the world who need nitric oxide. Number one, it's people who are sick and want to get well. And then the second person is the person who's well and doesn't want to get sick. So for me, I'll give you my example. So I'm 51 years old. I have normal blood pressure. I don't take any prescription medications, and I feel better today probably than I did when I was 31. So when I take my lozenge, I don't feel any different. It's not something that I can put my finger on. But if I go to the gym and work out, and I take the lozenge or take the beats and do the workout, and then if I do the same workout without it, I certainly notice a difference in kind of the perceived exertion that takes me to do that same workout. But the sicker you are, the bigger the effect's going to be. Some people, we put the lozenge in their mouth and they go, wow, within seconds. They go, I feel like my brain just cleared up. My head's a lot clearer. People that are chronic smokers, emphysema, COPD, they go, wow, I feel like I can breathe for the first time. And even during COVID, we had pulse oximeters out in the field, and we could improve tissue oxygenation or blood oxygen saturation, from 76 to 98 within 7 minutes. And people feel that because if they got a blood oxygen saturation of 76, they're feeling awful. So when they put the lozenge in their mouth, we improve tissue oxygenation, saturation of hemoglobin. They feel that. And so, we've done this. We've done ultrasound. We've done vascular experiments. So when you put the lozenge in your mouth, within 12 to 15 seconds, we can see dilation of the carotids with ultrasound. Within 20 minutes, we've improved the body's ability to make nitric oxide on its own by 20%. So these are objective, indisputable data showing that the nitric oxide is having an effect. Now, will people feel that? Some do, some don't. The top three, just to answer your question, is people will feel more energy. Probably the top two is better sleep. I don't have an explanation how nitric oxide is improving sleep. Maybe just better perfusion of the blood of the brain, and balancing hormones, and maybe more dopamine or serotonin or things like that. But I don't have any mechanistic explanation. And then number three, sexual function, because we're dilating the blood vessels and improving blood flow, improving engorgement. So sexual function improves. So those are probably the top three. But, everybody's different. Some people experience those, some people don't.
Now, does nitric oxide, does it also help overcome any kind of stubborn weight gain that a woman who's in perimenopause or menopause might be experiencing?
We don't have any data, and perhaps would be the safe answer, but, I like to kind of under promise and over deliver. To me, I think weight gain and especially around menopause is primarily driven by thyroid. And so, your basal temperature is your readout of your thyroid function. And for me, it doesn't matter what your TSH, T4, T3 is. If you're waking up in the morning and your basal temperature is below 98, your thyroid isn't working. So if you can normalize your basal metabolic temperature to 98.6 when you open your eyes in the morning, that tells us that your thyroid's working. And your thyroid sets your basal metabolic rate. And so if your temperature is low, obviously you're burning less calories. You're burning cooler. If you optimize your thyroid, you're going to increase your basal metabolic rate. You're going to burn hotter, and you're going to be able to burn more calories. And you're going to have more energy and want to exercise. But again, how does thyroid work? You need iodine. 95% of Americans are deficient in iodine. You need iodine to convert T4 to active T3 hormone. The other problem is fluoride. And remember, the fluoride and iodine are on the same column on the periodic table. These are called halogens. They compete with one another. So if 95% of Americans are deficient in iodine, and 99% of Americans are exposed to fluoride through water supply or toothpaste or mouthwash, their thyroid can't work, because they don't have enough iodine to convert T4 to active T3 or T2. So we have to eliminate the fluoride, supplement with iodine, and watch their basal metabolic rate come up, and temperature improve, and their thyroid function will improve.
And so if they're was one change that women, as are listening to the interview, what would that one change be that they would need to make?
Now, I mean, for that, look, we need hormones, we need estrogen. And I think you have to find a good physician or endocrinologist or healthcare practitioner that understands how to individualize hormones, because it's not just replacement of estrogen, it's always a balance of estrogen, progesterone, estradiols, and so you can't, and delivery of this is very important. I'm not a big fan of the pellets because I think people need to self-medicate based on different cycles and mimicking physiology and applying the best medicine for that actual patient. And there's really not a one size fits all. But if you're postmenopausal, we have to replace hormones, because now we live in a world where it's not without reach to live to be 100, 120. But nobody wants to live to 100, 120 if they feel bad. Right? If you don't have balanced hormones, you're not going to feel good. So for me, it's all about balancing your hormones, a balanced diet in moderation. I think an 18-hour fast every day is huge. The data on the intermittent fasting is indisputable. It resets your metabolism. And then just understanding what toxins you're exposed to and limit your exposure to toxins.
Mm-hmm. So as individuals are listening to you, Dr. Brian, they're listening about the nitric oxide, where can they find your book? Where can they find out more about you?
Well, number one, I'm less interested in selling supplements as I am about providing education and awareness around nitric oxide, so that your listeners can, make informed decisions about purchasing products or supplements or finding the right healthcare practitioner for them. I strongly encourage your listeners to buy the book. This is my latest book, as you mentioned, The Secret of Nitric Oxide. You can find that at nathansbook.com. It's on Amazon, Barnes and Noble. But subscribe to my YouTube channel, Dr. Nathan S. Bryan Nitric Oxide. We provide education, awareness. So a lot of times I'll review scientific literature and try to communicate what the latest scientific findings tell us and how you can apply that to your normal life. I'm on social media, Instagram at Dr. Nathan S. Bryan. Same at LinkedIn, Twitter on Dr. Nitric. What else? And then those who are interested in product technology, we're at N101.com. It's the letter N, number one, letter O, number one.com. And then if you're interested in following our drug discovery program, we're at BryanTherapeutics.com. But we're excited about that. But we've got a skincare line of products for skincare and beauty that's really changing the game in skincare and beauty. We make our nitric oxide releasing lozenge. We make a fermented beet powder that's without a doubt the best pre-workout energy product on the market. It's great for athletes. If you just need an afternoon energy pick-me-up instead of taking a Red Bull or a Monster or 5-hour energy, try our NO Beats. It's a natural source of energy, improves mitochondria, improves blood flow. So we're affecting energy at the subcellular level.
Mm-hmm. And if there is one word that you would leave with our listeners today, what would that be, Dr. Brian?
One word. It's hope. Hope is a very powerful force, and it's for me, it's hope in the future, hope in a life everlasting. It's hope in the science is going to change the way we practice medicine. It's hope that there's a better way, there's a better tomorrow. So no matter what your condition is today, always maintain hope. And so number one is hope, faith, and love. Those are the three that the Bible teaches us.
Yes, absolutely. And so thank you so much today, Dr. Brian, for being my guest. This has been informative, enlightening, and I know it's going to bless so many of our listeners who are wanting to know more about nitric oxide and how it can improve their health. So thank you so much for the work that you do. May God continue to bless you to help make our world healthier.
Well, thank you so much, and God bless you, and keep up the good work you're doing.
Thanks so much, Dr. Brian.
Thank you.
What an amazing conversation with Dr. Nathan Bryan. I hope you're walking away with a deeper understanding of how vital nitric oxide is, not just for your energy and hormone balance, but also for cardiovascular health, longevity, and overall vitality. If you'd like to learn more or try Dr. Bryan's nitric oxide products for yourself, head over to n101.com. And don't forget to check out the show notes for a special discount code just for our listeners. Thank you so much for tuning in to Integrative Medicine for Energy and Health. If today's episode inspired you, share it with a friend, subscribe, and leave a review. It truly helps us reach more women just like you. Until next time, stay energized, stay balanced, and rooted in faith. I'll leave you with Psalm 103, verses 2 through 4. Bless the Lord, O my soul, and forget not all his benefits, who forgives all your iniquity, who heals all your diseases, who redeems your life from the pit, who crowns you with steadfast love and mercy. Hey friend, I hope you enjoyed today's episode. If so, would you take 30 seconds and share it with a friend who may want to have more energy and improve their health naturally? Also, I would love it if you could leave a quick review for the show on Apple Podcasts. It blesses me tremendously to know that this podcast is helping you. Alrighty then, it's time to go make a protein shake and go for a hike. No more days of feeling tired and drained. I'll see you in a few days for another episode. God bless.